Okay.
Okay. Hey David, so this is the feeding syringe right here. It's marked off in 1 and 2 ounce amounts, so we'll try to keep his feedings pretty small and frequent, so about 1 ounce at a time. And then this is the feeding tube, this long rubber catheter. It has 2 holes in the end, so just when you clean it out, make sure both holes are nice and clean. Clean everything up with hot soapy water and let it air dry between uses, just like you would a baby bottle. You're gonna be putting this down through his mouth and into his esophagus, and I'll tell you how to absolutely know you're in the esophagus where you want to be and not in the airway. But since these are 2 pieces, just keep in mind you don't want this to become detached and then the cria to swallow it, then it's gone. So, but these grip very tightly. When you get it on there tight, I mean, it is hard to get off. You have to like really twist it up here at the base to get it loose. I'll get it off. But anyways, make sure the connection is nice and tight. And truthfully, what I tend to do is I just get it on there nice and tight, and then I draw the milk up through the end. Like I'll put this down into the baby bottle and then use this syringe to pull milk up into there. And then I'll tip this up, pull a little bit of air through to clear the hose, and then I'm loaded, ready to go. And then I can concentrate on introducing this into the cria. You're gonna go through the cria's mouth. It doesn't matter if you go in from the right-hand side. I usually do because I'm right-handed, or if you go in through the left-hand side of the mouth. Ultimately, you're gonna end up right on midline, and it's gonna get to the back of his throat, and then he's gonna swallow it 9 times out of 10. But the tip of this is small enough that it could slide into his airway by accident. And so the way you confirm you're in his esophagus and not his airway is to remember this. If you're in the airway, you can pull air out of his airway into the syringe. If you're in his esophagus, the esophagus is just a little flat, thin-walled muscular tube. The esophagus is going to collapse down around the end of that feeding tube, and when you go to try to pull air into the syringe, you're not going to get anything. It's going to be negative pressure. That's one way you can confirm. The other really important way is to feel for the end of this tube. If you can feel the end of the tube sliding down his neck, it might be on midline, it might be on the right side, it might be on the left side. It's hard to predict, but if you can feel the tip of this, as you advance it down, if you're feeling this tip, then you are definitely in the esophagus, not the airway, because the airway has cartilage rings and is pretty rigid, so it's going to shield you from being able to feel that tube. But if you're in his esophagus, you will feel that. And so you can sometimes see it, slide down the neck. I don't know if you can see that, but you can sometimes see it slide down the neck under the skin, and then you can feel it. I usually advance it back and forth and feel it bumping up against my fingertips. That's how I confirm that, okay, I'm in the esophagus. And then it's just a matter of sliding it, all the way down. With a cria, they have pretty long necks. You're frequently, by the time you go through their mouth and then their esophagus, you're sometimes not quite into the stomach. That's okay. If you get it fed all the way through his mouth so that the tip of this red is just about right there, as long as even if you're still in the esophagus, as long as you're giving it at a fairly slow. Okay, so this is just a practice run. There's no water or milk in the tube. When there is milk in the tube, I usually let the syringe dangle down like this, so there's no risk of the milk inadvertently getting into the airway. So I'm just gonna hold him like this. I have my arm behind his head so he can't back his head up, and I have his chin supported. I'm just going in between his lips to the back of his throat. He starts chewing, that's normal, and I start to feed it. So I'm in his esophagus right now, but I need to confirm that. So the first way to check is to feel for it.
Right there on his neck. Oh,
yeah, yep, I can feel it right there on my fingertip. It's sort of subtle, but when you feel it, it's unmistakable. So I know I'm in there, but my second way of checking is to pull back, and I'm not getting any air into the feeding syringe at all. So now I can just slide it down to about right there, and if there was milk in there, I could feed him over about 10 seconds or so. And then when you're done, you just pull it out in one smooth motion. So this is nice and tightly attached now. And you can just put your clean syringe into the milk and pull up what you intend to feed. I'm going to go ahead and give him 1.5 ounces. So that's 45 mLs. And then I'm going to tip it up and pull back some more so that the line is clean. It's clear of any milk, so that if we do get the feeding tube into the wrong opening, into the airway, it's not going to drip milk into his airway. Now we're going to feed him.
He says, whoa, here he comes again.
Like I said, I just let the syringe dangle down, get it into the mouth. I know, buddy. We swallowed it, now I'm confirming that I feel the tube. I feel it. I'm pulling back. I'm not getting any air. Now I'm advancing it all the way down. And now I'm just going to give it nice and slow. One pretty reliable indication that it's in their esophagus is the chewing. So that's normal for them to chew when it's in their esophagus. If it is accidentally in their airway when you pass the feeding tube, they'll usually sputter and cough, but not always. It depends on how weak the cria is. I suspect that for him, it probably would cause him to cough and act, you know, uncomfortable because it's in his airway. Good boy. And I'm keeping his, chin kind of horizontal. I'm not, lifting his chin up really high. And now at this point, you just don't want to pause when the tube is in the back of his throat. So just one nice continuous pull. You just don't want to hesitate if the tube is about that far in. Otherwise, you might get some air or some milk in the back of his throat. So, okay, that is all.